In this video, we will be making 4 servings of Chinese barbecue chicken fried rice. The first step is to make our barbecue chicken. To make this, let's prepare a marinade. First, we will need 3 cloves of garlic. Lightly smash each clove with the side of your knife, peel the skin and cut off the woody end part. Then we need to mince the garlic finely. You can chop this with a knife, use a garlic press, or whatever other method you want, but I opted for a fine grater today. I grated all the garlic and then chopped through it a few times to break up any pieces that didn't get minced properly. Put this into a bowl and add 2 tablespoons of white sugar, 1 teaspoon of cooking salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of MSG, half a teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice powder, and some of this fermented red bean curd, which you can find at an Asian supermarket. I am using 1 cube of the bean curd plus around a tablespoon of the liquid it is sitting in. You can omit this and it will still taste great, but this is one of the signature flavors of this marinade. At this point, I am going to mix all the ingredients together to form a paste. The reason being that it is easier to mash the bean curd with just the dry ingredients, and it will be more difficult to do after adding the liquids. Once it is mashed into a paste, continue by adding 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing cooking wine, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce, 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, and I added about 5 drops of red food coloring to give it a little more of a bright red color, but that was just for the video and I usually wouldn't add it as it doesn't affect the flavor. Mix everything together and our marinade is done. Now to prepare our chicken. Here I have 4 chicken thighs. We will only need 3 for this recipe, so the extra one can be used for something else. With each thigh, I trimmed off any excess fat, skin, connective tissue, or cartilage that was left on the chicken. Then I like to cut into the thicker parts of the thigh to thin it out a little bit so that it is all a fairly even thickness. And repeat this for all the chicken. Once everything is trimmed up, add it to a sealable bag or container and then add the marinade. Try to get most of the air out and seal it up. Mix everything around so that the marinade coats all the chicken. I like to put the whole bag into a container or bowl just in case it leaks. Leave this to marinate in the fridge for anywhere from a few hours up to 24 hours. In my case, I did this about 24 hours before I cooked it. I also like to flip the bag around every now and then throughout the marinating process if I happen to remember. It is now the next day and we are ready to cook the chicken. Place the chicken on a tray with a wire rack. Add the remaining marinade to a separate bowl or container as we are going to use this to baste our chicken throughout the cooking process. Also add a little bit of water to the bottom of the tray to prevent any of the marinade that drips down from burning. The cooking time and methods might vary based on your oven, but this is the process which works with mine. I set the oven to 230 degrees Celsius or about 450 Fahrenheit with only the top heating element on. Then the tray went into the oven on the top half for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, take the chicken out, flip it, and brush it with the marinade. Then back into the oven for another 10 minutes and repeat until you are happy with the result. We are going based on the color of the outside rather than trying to cook this to a perfect temperature. It took me a total of 50 minutes to reach the doneness I wanted. We want the marinade to be nicely caramelized all over and for the edges to start getting a little bit charred. And just make sure not to add any extra marinade after it has cooked, since the marinade has been contaminated with raw chicken and won't be cooked again. Once it is done, set it aside to cool. Once cooled, take 3 thighs and cut them into strips. I am going for about 1 centimeter strips, but you can cut them to whatever size you like. Then rotate and cut the strips into cubes. Put the diced chicken in a bowl and set it aside until we are ready to cook. While we are cooking the chicken, we can prepare all our other ingredients, starting with the rice. I am using 2 cups of jasmine rice to provide half a cup per serving. Rinse the rice a few times with water and strain it. Add the washed and drained rice back to the pot along with 2 1/4 cups of water. We are also going to season the rice as it cooks, so we don't have to worry about seasoning as we are stir frying. So to the rice, add 2 1/2 teaspoons of cooking salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of MSG, half a teaspoon of white pepper, and 1 teaspoon of white sugar. Mix it together and set it over high heat until it boils and there is visible steam. Put the lid on, turn the heat to low, and set a timer for 12 minutes. After 12 minutes, turn the heat off but keep the lid on for another 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, our rice should be perfectly cooked. Most of the pepper has stayed at the top of the rice, but that will get mixed through later. Put all the rice onto a tray and spread it out so it cools and dries faster. And once it is cool, I like to split the rice into 4 servings and put it in separate containers, as it is easier to add to the wok later when we are cooking. Next, let's move on to the vegetables. You can really use any leftover vegetables here, but I am going for carrots and peas. Slice 1 small carrot on an angle and try to keep all the slices in the same order they are cut. You can go thicker or thinner depending on your preference, but I like fairly small pieces in my fried rice. Then pat all the slices of carrot down so they are laying flat in an even layer. Cut into strips of about the same thickness as the slices were, and then dice the strips into little cubes of again a similar thickness. Once diced, set the carrots into a bowl, and to the same bowl add 1 cup of frozen peas. We briefly need to cook the vegetables before they go into the rice, which I am going to do by adding boiling water to the bowl and letting it sit for about 1 to 2 minutes. Alternatively, you could just add water and microwave it for a few minutes instead. In either case, strain the vegetables and add them back to the bowl. Make sure to strain off as much liquid as possible, as we want to minimize liquid going into the wok when we are cooking. And I am also going to add some spring onion. I am using 4 spring onions, 1 per serving, but you can use as many or as little as you like. All we need to do is cut off the root and roughly separate the white and green parts. With the whites, I just chopped them thinly and put them into a bowl. With the greens, I did the same thing but chopped them a little thicker, as they will wilt much faster than the whites. Add them to the same bowl and set them aside until ready for cooking. And lastly, we need some eggs. I'm using 1 egg per serving, so 4 eggs in total. Crack them into a bowl and whisk together, and that is it. Now we are ready for cooking. This comes together fast, so we want to have everything prepared before we start. We are going to cook our rice in 2 batches, as most home stoves are probably not powerful enough to effectively stir-fry large batches of food all at once. Heat up your wok on maximum heat until it starts smoking. Then add 1 tablespoon of high heat cooking oil and turn the heat down to low. Add half the egg to the wok and swirl it around until it is mostly cooked. I find that if I leave the heat on high for this step, the egg usually burns very quickly. Add 2 servings of rice to the wok and turn the heat back to maximum, where it will stay for the rest of the cooking time. The technique I use here is to flip the rice and punch it lightly with the back of the ladle to separate all the clumps of rice and to break up the egg. Repeat this for a couple of minutes until all the rice grains are separated. This is the most important step when cooking fried rice, so take your time. A good sign is if you see the rice grains jumping on the wok surface. Once all the grains are separated, add half the vegetables and half the chicken. Stir fry everything for another minute or so until they are all mixed through. Then we will add 1 tablespoon of light soy sauce around the edges of the wok so that it sears and caramelizes. We just added moisture to the wok, so it might become a little sticky immediately after adding it. Continue to stir fry until the moisture has evaporated and the rice is loose and separate once again, around 30 seconds or so. Then turn the heat off and add half of our spring onions. Stir them through and our fried rice is done. Evenly distribute the rice between the 2 containers that had the cooked rice in them and set them aside. By the way, if everything went well, we should have nothing stuck to the wok. Now we just need to repeat the same process for the other half of the ingredients. Heat the wok to maximum until it starts smoking. Add 1 tablespoon of oil and turn the heat to low. Add the rest of the egg and swirl until it is mostly cooked. Add the remaining 2 servings of rice, flip and punch the rice to separate. Add the rest of the vegetables and chicken and mix everything through. Add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce around the edges and stir fry until the moisture evaporates. Turn the heat off and add the rest of the spring onions. Distribute the rice into the containers and we are done. In the end, we are left with 4 servings of Chinese barbecue chicken fried rice. Let them cool down for a few minutes before putting the lids on and storing them in the fridge for up to about 1 week. To serve, just microwave for a few minutes and you have a nice serving of fried rice to eat. Each serving ended up being 629 calories with 33 grams of protein, 85 grams of carbohydrate, and 16 grams of fat.